Reverend Diane Russell is a minister in so many ways. She has a minister's heart of service, and she's always doing something here. You see her all the time. She absolutely exemplifies suit up, show up, and say yes. Um, she teaches classes and workshops and arranges retreats. She is in charge of our fundraising. She's in charge of our special events. You've seen her most recently running our Vittles for Vision fundraisers. Anything new and special and exciting, any program that we have that is a special event, you know Diana's behind it with her love and her consciousness and her sense of style. She is an invaluable part of the life of Vision, and please welcome her right here, right now, Reverend Diane Russell.
That was quite an introduction. So I'm very happy to be here to close out our month of talking about Imagine. And I want to thank my dear, long time friend Rachel for that song, and because it perfectly supports the talk, perfectly. Hold on 1 minute. Don't go anywhere. I just have to change glasses. It'll be much easier to see this way. Sorry. Style, yeah, red. Okay. All right. So last week, in our last episode, Reverend Patty was talking to us about the many steps for living our best life. And today I want to make sure that we are living the life that we're here to live. And so that's another way of saying, are we giving our gift? In the title of Imagine Yourself, I used the capital S, self, because that's your God self. So I wanted us to talk or feel the God self. So first, just take a minute and imagine yourself the way you see yourself. And then take a minute and imagine yourself the way God or Spirit or this great life force sees you or has created you. And then, is there a difference? Is there a difference between the way you see yourself and the way that Spirit either sees you or created you? If you are fortunate, there is no difference. If you know yourself well, the difference is small. But for most of us, I think that there's a difference, a distance between how you see yourself and how God sees you. And so that is where the work comes in. So God always has a larger idea for us than we do for ourselves. We tend to fill ourselves with all these reasons of why something won't work, why it's not a good idea, why we can't do it. Some of those, you might know those things as fear or ego. But if you're one of the ones that is living the idea that God has for you, then congratulations on that. We all agree that we're created out of God's stuff, yes? Okay? And we all agree that God or Spirit has us each here for a reason, yes? Okay. And you don't have to answer this question, but are you living that reason? You have many gifts, and there's probably many activities that you feel very passionate about. So because of this, because there's so many different things, sometimes we don't know which direction to take our life. Or how do we make that next decision? It helps to take some steps. Those are steps, by the way. It helps to take some steps in some direction. So rather than staying stationary, because if it's the right decision, you'll be guided, and if it's the wrong decision, you'll be redirected. And that happens by deep listening. In a book by Greg Lavoie called Callings, he talks about how folks often will do something that is related to the thing they love, but it isn't that thing. So it's kind of an avoidance technique, but it's also either because of their non-commitment to themselves or because of their lack of belief in themselves. An example is a person may be a teacher instead of becoming a parent, or they might be the promoter instead of being the rock star. And I'm going to give you an example. So you know how little kids, especially girls, always want to play house? They want the mom and the dad and the children's. Well, I never did that. When I was a wee small lass, I always wanted to play school. And I always wanted to be the teacher. I always knew I wanted to be a teacher. But I didn't do it. I was a youth leader for 20 years, so still working with kids. And I was the youth director at the church, and I teach classes, but I didn't do that thing. So that tells two things, and one is that I didn't do the thing, but the other thing it tells you is that my soul still found a way to put me teaching. Does that make sense? Say yes. Okay. In this teaching, we often talk about standing in our truth, and we use that expression a lot to mean that we're saying our truth to someone else. But what about standing in our truth to ourselves? How honest or how real are you being with yourself? And in what areas of your life are you pulling the wool over your own eyes? I heard somebody over there. And I'm going to tell another story on myself, and I only do that so that maybe you can learn something from my stuff. So in my classes, I always tell my students to check their motive. So whatever you're doing, what is the reason behind doing that? Is it to be in service, or is it because you want approval, or is it for out of obligation, a sense of obligation, guilt? Guilt's a good motivator. It's so interesting that Reverend Patty talked about how I jump in, because I was going to talk about how I jump in. Because when I get involved in something, I jump right in. Oh yeah, I can do that. Oh yeah, I can do that too. And I always truly believe that I'm being in service. I do it at work, I do it here, wherever. And I know a lot of you do that too. But in my inner work that I have done over the years, I have seen that I do things often for approval. And so I hop in, busy doing things, and then I will have a sense of disappointment because someone didn't acknowledge me the way I thought, or because I wasn't appreciated, or some kind of thing. And that's always my stuff. I always notice it, but it's always an indicator that I was expecting, that my motivation was something else other than pure being in service, and that I had an expectation attached to it. So if you do that, you can learn from that, you see. The rest of that the rest of the other part of that, let's say, is that we don't really need the approval of other people. We need the approval of ourselves, our own deep God self, to validate us, and that's all we need. We need us to validate us. But sometimes we forget. There's many stories of folks that were doing one thing, but the call of their gift was so loud they couldn't ignore it, and they changed directions. I have several, I'll say several, musician friends that were doing other things. They were doing mortgage banking, they were doing medical technology, they were doing computer dude, that is an occupation, office manager, and the call of the music could not be ignored. And so they changed direction. People leave corporate jobs to become more creative, and people leave family jobs, families, to enter the workforce. It doesn't always matter, actually it never matters what the direction is, as long as the direction is to a more authentic life. Often, in our quest to be authentic, we will make decisions that seem quite crazy to other people. What? Give up a job with benefits? Or quit teaching when you're this close to retirement? Become a minister? But it's your call. And it's your call, okay? It's your call. It's your life. And it does not have to make sense to other people. But it does have to make sense to you. And here's the other thing. There are consequences to living a non-authentic life. Because if you're not feeding your soul, which is what authenticity is all about, it will affect your prosperity, it'll affect your health, it'll affect your relationships, and so on. In one of my favorite books, which I happen to bring with me, which is called First You Have to Row a Little Boat, it's just fabulous, especially if you're a sailing person, because it relates life lessons to sailing. I happen to do some sailing. But anyway, so the author describes the price he paid for not being authentic. And he had always known that he wanted to write. He always found words to be very magical, intriguing. But he ended up working for an advertising agency, and he was writing speeches for other people to say, and he was just getting further and further away from who he was. And one day on his way to work, his hip gave out, and he ended up in the hospital in a cocoon, which was a body cast, for 6 months. And he said, the doctor knew the osteoarthritic symptoms, but only I knew the underlying cause. I had been forcing my legs to carry my body in a direction it didn't want to go. So he had a lot of time to think in a 6-month cast. You have a lot of time to think. And he realized that he had sold out and that he was chasing the money rather than being who he was. So when he came out of the cocoon, he called it a cocoon, he had a new direction. Now, I am not advocating that folks run out and quit their job. In fact, I've tried it that way. There are some flaws to that system. It's true. But what I am suggesting is that you feed your soul. And if it's not practical for you to change direction all at one time, then just be sure that you're doing the thing that feeds you sometimes. If you love singing, you may not just quit your job and go become a singer. But you could join the choir. James would be happy to have you. You might not have figured out how to support yourself as a writer, but you could start a blog, or you could write a newsletter. The important thing is that your soul is being fed. As I said earlier, God always has a larger idea for us than we do. Sometimes we catch the idea, and sometimes we feel the confidence, we get the energy, we're so excited. And the first bump in the road, or the first little disappointment, we throw in the towel. Or in this case, we give up on ourselves. Most of us have a hard time sustaining that grand idea of ourselves. So how would you do that? You could call your practitioner. In this thing called life, Dr. Holmes said, no matter how many thoughts of doubt enter your mind, just mentally brush them aside. Sit in the silence of your thought until you see through the confusion. You will soon discover that just as the sun dissipates the fog, so your sense of peace will penetrate a wall of confusion. At the very opening, right inside the book cover of the book called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, it says, you are here to enable the divine purpose of the universe to unfold. That is how important you are. I'm going to say that again. You are here to enable the divine purpose of the universe to unfold. That is how important you are. That is how important you are. Okay, let's say it this way. I am here, say this with me. I am here to enable the divine purpose of the universe to unfold. That is how important I am. Isn't that good? All spiritual traditions know this, that we are here for a reason, and that it is our purpose to live that reason. So I came upon this poem by a contemporary poet named David White, and this one is called All the True Vows, and it so speaks to authenticity. So here we go. All the true vows, the secret vows, the ones we speak out loud, are the ones we break. There is only one life you can call your own, and 1,000 others you can call by any name you want. Hold to the truth you make every day with your body. Don't turn your face away. Hold to your own truth at the center of the image you were born with. Those who do not understand their destiny will never understand the friends they have made, nor the work they have chosen, nor the life that waits beyond all the others. By the lake in the wood, in the shadows, you can whisper that truth to the quiet reflection you see in the water. Whatever you hear from the water, remember, it wants you to carry the sound of its truth on your lips. Remember, in this place, no one can hear you. And out of the silence, you can make a promise it will kill you to break. That way, you'll find what is real and what is not. I know what I'm saying. Time almost forsook me, and I looked again. Seeing my reflection, I broke a promise and spoke for the first time after all these years in my own voice, before it was too late to turn my face again. I love that. And so somewhere in the secret place in your heart, you know what you are called to do, and you know why you are here. You know what it means to you to be authentic. It doesn't mean pleasing family and friends. Sorry, Mom. And it doesn't mean hiding your gift from yourself or from the world. It means getting real and then having the courage and the trust to do whatever's next. It means coming down from the tree. And think about this. When you're not giving your gift, not only are you robbing yourself, but you're robbing the whole rest of us as well. So percolate on that. The question is, are you honoring that call? Are you honoring your gift, and are you honoring the God in you by using your gifts in the way that you are called to serve? There's another great metaphysician whose name is Dr. Seuss. And he said, "Today you are you. That is truer than true. There is no one alive that is youer than you." And that's the whole point. And I read this other article in some past Oprah magazine. The author, Frances LaPay, said, oh, I love this too. "Today, a lot of people assume they're fearful because of terrorism or the shaky economy. But I've grown certain that the root of all fear is that we've been forced to deny who we are. Because when you get right down to it, even the fear of death is nothing compared to the fear of not having lived authentically and fully." So, please, please, please be who you were born to be. And remember that you are the light, and that your light makes a difference to me and to each other and to the world. Thank you.